Good afternoon, everybody. On this rainy Monday, April 21st, 2025, at least rainy here in Nashville, Tennessee. Maybe it's nice where you are. I've got all of your stories to get you home safely. These are the stories for your rush hour ride home. Big news out of the Vatican as Pope Francis has passed away. We'll share that. Plus, George Clooney responds to President Trump calling him a second-rate actor. Laughs it off, but I'll share his comment. Then Blake Lively, a new petition is out to have her removed from Time's 100 most influential list. We'll have to see how influential that petition is. And we'll also share the organization that still publicly is speaking out against Justin Baldoni after he had received a reward, which they took back in December of 2024. Plus, a serial killer may be on the loose in Connecticut. So a New England serial killer, I'll share that story and more info on Signalgate regarding the group chat from our Secretary of Defense to his wife and brother, what the president thinks about it, and also an update on tariffs as we hear from Ryan Grimm, and he discusses the countries that have no idea what they need to do to fix this. Not a good sign moving forward, but we got it all here for you. So stick around, all these stories and more happening right now on The Rush. Well, it's a big weekend for Minecraft as they surpass $720 million at the box office. Chicken jockey indeed. How about that for Jack Black? And Sinners debuts to $63 million at global box office. Sinners is that vampire movie. So you got it all. Kids movies and vampire movies. It looks like it's wild, right? This movie could surpass $1 billion. Pretty insane stuff if you ask me. All right, well, let's go into the big, very sad story. Pope Francis dead at 88. The 266th Pope in the Catholic Church's history has died. The Vatican confirmed. It's no surprise. He was 88 and, of course, was battling, I believe, pneumonia. And, at that age, really anything can be the end, right? And it's a big time now for the Vatican as they'll kind of decide who they're going to, who's the next Pope going to be and what's their, theology, or what political leanings do they have? And you hate to say it, but this is the world they live in. Some people are saying the next Pope may be more conservative because they thought Pope Francis was too liberal. I don't think it matters as long as you're really practicing what Jesus preached. The only problem is how many of us that say they practice what Jesus preached would be disgusted by Jesus? That's the question we have to ask, right? Because, come on, we need to love our neighbor, whether that neighbor is here legally or not, right? Isn't that the whole thing? Anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted, "Today there were major shifts in global leadership. Evil is being defeated by the hand of God." I don't even know if I should be upset. I don't know what this means. I don't know if this means she's happy that the Pope passed or if she's just announcing that there will be a major shift. I have no idea. But of course, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance met briefly with the Pope, one of the last people to see him. Now, conspiracy theorists will say, oh, this is, someone said this confirms that J.D. Vance is the Antichrist. I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think it's just he met the leader. It was like a hot potato, right? He was one of the last people to meet the Pope, and then the Pope's, was on kind of the way out the door. Is this the happiest day for J.D. Vance? He wasn't a raised Catholic, right? He kind of converted to Catholicism. Either way, it'll be a big day. It'll be a very important moment for the Vatican as they sort of decide what to do next. Here is the reporting on what happens after the Pope has passed.
An elaborate process is now set to begin to decide who will become the next leader of the Catholic Church.
By the way, should they do it like The Voice, where a couple bishops, like their chairs turn if they like what they hear?
ABC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons reports.
The customs of the Catholic Church are clear and carefully orchestrated. Once the period of mourning is done, the centuries-old tradition to elect a new pope, known as the conclave and shrouded in secrecy, gets underway.
It starts with a donation by Elon Musk. That's, I mean, hey, look, you might say, Dave, you shouldn't be joking around about this. Well, sometimes we laugh because we can't cry, right? That's what we do. No, I don't know if Elon Musk will be donating to the bishops to see. The Vatican has now announced Starlink. This is a Starlink logo right there. They use Starlink to broadcast all of their Catholic masses. No, again, we'll have to. I have an uncle who's a priest, so I can make jokes about the Catholic Church. But either way, I hope that whoever they elect is a voice that can inspire the world to come together, put differences aside, end wars, and find peace on earth. That's what I would like. I'm sorry, does Dave Neal get a vote? Give me a pope who can transcend the arbitrary borders we set up, the divisions we find based on fear rhetoric of being afraid of who doesn't look like us, and bring us all together and make it a woman. Give us a woman pope. No, I'm kidding. I could just see that, like Kristen Wiig stars in the female adaptation of, Princess Popol. I don't know. Anyway, let's move it on. All right, from less divisive topics, let's go to George Clooney on Donald Trump. George Clooney was asked what he thinks about Donald Trump because, well, here's how it started. Donald Trump said this a couple months ago. Why would the now highly discredited 60 Minutes be doing a total puff piece on George Clooney, a second-rate movie star and failed political pundit? He fought hard for Sleepy Joe's election and then, right after the debate, dumped him like a dog. Later, I assume under orders from the Obama camp, pushed all out for Kamala, only to soon realize that that was not going to work out too well. He spelled "too" wrong. It's hard to read this. 60 Minutes even fraudulently inserted fake answers into the disastrous interview, aired just before Election Day in one of the most embarrassing and dishonest events in broadcast history. And now George Clooney again. His press agent should be making a fortune. By the way, I'm all about trash talking. I mean, I don't think the president should be spending any amount of their time doing this, even though they've probably got some, peroxide dyed blonde girl who's just typing out, she gets a degree from some prestigious school and her first big break is dictating what Donald Trump tells her to tweet. And that's how I tweet. I tweet like that. But either way, it's interesting because, look, say what you want about George Clooney, but he is not a second-rate movie star. George Clooney is one of our greatest exports, and everyone wants to make it like this Hollywood elite. He's from Kentucky. He's a Kentucky guy that, anyway, here's what he had to say. Did he take the bait? Have a listen.
In a recent 60 Minutes profile.
Oh, by the way, he's being interviewed by astronaut Gail King.
The soundbite where George was talking about the importance of journalism.
When the other three estates fail, when the judiciary and the executive and the legislative branches fail us, the fourth estate has to succeed. Has to succeed.
Has to succeed.
Yeah.
After this interview, just so you know, President Trump called you a second-rate movie star.
That's true.
And a failed We were just saying that about you the other day, George.
Yeah, that's okay.
And a failed political pundit. We're saying it in jest, but what was your reaction?
I don't care. I mean, I've known Donald Trump for a long time. My job is not to please, the President of the United States. My job is to try to tell the truth when I can and when I have the opportunity. And look, I'm well aware of the idea that that people will not like that. There will be people that criticize that, and there's certainly people. Elon Musk is weighed in every once in a while. Mm-hmm. That's their right to do it, and it's my right to say the other side.
Mm-hmm. There it is, yeah. And I know people will go, oh, we shouldn't listen to these movie stars. Okay, don't. But I, for one, just like people that will put their money where their mouth is and share their opinions, whether you like it or not. I find that very authentic, especially when that opinion might not be the most popular or come with some sort of pushback. Again, that happens politically. All right, well, let's get into this. Coming up right now, a police investigation in Groton, Connecticut is leading to rumblings of a serial killer on the loose.
Mark, police are really focusing on one apartment in particular here, but we have learned there is no body, which was a fear for a lot of people in this community and in this neighborhood. Here's a look at what investigators are doing right now. You can see all of that area roped off again, focusing on that one apartment right on the corner of Allen Street and Mitchell Street, the one closest to the road here. Groton City detectives hard at work, as well as folks from State Police and Eastern District Major Crimes. Important to note that just down the street, just a couple of weeks ago, ago on Mitchell Street, those human remains were found in a cemetery just a block or two away.
Now, I'm no rocket scientist. I'm certainly no astronaut. But if you find human remains in a cemetery, I would think that would be the most logical place to find them. But of course, I'm sure they weren't buried, in the way that one might think. Now, here we have so now the full conversation about a New England serial killer is happening. And here's forensic experts here in New Haven discussing the fact that there is now half a dozen or so body parts that have been found from different bodies.
I'm Dr. Peter Valentin. I'm chair of the Forensic Science Department at the University of New Haven, and I specialize in crime scene reconstruction and crime scene investigation. The first thing that strikes me as curious is the fact that 7 sets of remains have been found over the span of 2 months. That in and of itself is rather curious. It's certainly a lot to find in a little, and it's a large number of human remains to find in a short period of time. And so whether that is the product of a directed search in particular areas because there's a belief that more remains will be found, we can't know because that information is not public at this point, or whether or not there's information to suggest that there's a reason to search, or that information is not publicly available.
All right, but hey, this is how, the whole thing kind of blows up, right? Is you find 2, then 7, next thing you know, you got a full-blown case. What's you linking them together? We don't have any of this info right now, but I'll be here to report the story. I mean, I hate to share on a Monday so many sad stories, but again, we're going to go from this straight to bird flu. I'll get Baldoni and Lively up in a minute, but let's go to bird flu. We discussed it this morning, and there's several ways of thinking on this. Some people say, oh, whatever, we're not worried about it. And that's a very privileged way to think, to kind of close your eyes and ears and say, no big deal, no bird flu here. But birds, I mean, I don't know if you guys knew this. They fly. Most birds fly, right? Unless you're one of those tariffed penguins that doesn't fly. Most birds fly. So to think of if birds are spreading the flu, that's a little, there ain't no social distancing from these, kamikaze-like, reptiles, these sort of modern day dinosaurs zipping around overhead. So either way, this could be bad now that they have shifted not just from birds, but now to cattle. So the more it goes from one mammal to another, it could be able to jump to humans. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but we should be educated about what's happening out there.
One of your colleagues told us that if this should spiral into a pandemic, this flu could make COVID look like a walk in the park.
I agree.
You're scaring me.
I'm scared about it myself. I don't sleep very much these days, Bill.
Listen, you should sleep. It's good for your immune system. And God knows we might have to rely on it because they don't have a cure. There's no vaccine for the bird flu. I don't even know what CDC is up to these days. I think they're, Jeff Bezos is sending them on trips to the moon or something. But here we have, I don't know how it works. Here we have another clip of one of the first companies to spot the virus during the COVID-19 pandemic says bird flu is just as concerning.
He showed us how fast the virus has spread among dairy cattle. It seems like almost a wildfire to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, add in poultry outbreaks. So this is virtually the whole country.
Pretty much.
Next, Dr. Cameron Kahn showed us a map of all the confirmed human cases of bird flu in the last 5 years. Most have been in Asia until now.
What you start to see around 2024 is you start to see a case in Texas, and then you start to see this sudden, rapid increase in cases across the country.
All over the place.
What's happening here is wild birds have infected cows, who have then infected other cows, who have then infected humans. And so there's this complex web of all of these different animal species now passing the virus in different directions.
Is this one of those things you have never seen before?
The world has never seen this kind of situation, and it's showing us that the virus is capable of adaptation if you allow it.
Great. And that's the problem, right? Is if you don't nip this in the bud, the virus continues to grow and then mutate and then could become either more deadly or less deadly, or now it's worse in humans and whatnot. And as we've seen with COVID and the long form variations of people that are susceptible to, pneumonia or other illnesses, it's just, it's something we don't quite need out there. Not to mention the price of beef and dairy will skyrocket if this becomes a full-blown pandemic. Here is a Colorado dairy farmer who was hit by bird flu, which spread from cow to cow. It's costing the farm almost $500,000 to treat the sick cattle.
At present, we're given a stick, and they put a blindfold on us, and then we're sent into a gunfight, and we're losing. We are losing.
Veterinarian Dr. Kay Russo told us we are running out of time to stop bird flu. She was called in when the virus H5N1 hit this dairy herd in Colorado last summer. It cost the farm about $400,000 to treat its sick cattle. Most recovered.
Some protective gear.
Yep.
But as an added precaution, we suited up to ensure we didn't bring anything onto the farm ourselves.
There's no front or back.
There's no front or back. It's high fashion.
It's real high fashion.
It's not clear how bird flu is spread from cow to cow, but milking equipment is a prime suspect. The virus is thought to linger on the auto milker, waiting for the next cow.
All right, so there it is. Utter disgrace. No jokes about it. I mean, look, this is, we'll report on it. I don't know, from serial killers to cows with bird flu. I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, I'm not here to bum you guys out. So speaking of which, I'll tell you what, let's take a break. Let's go back to celebrity goss for a second. Why don't we do that? So I'm going to make an audible here. We're going to take a break from all of this heavy stuff and go into, who do we have next? We've got, here it is. Change.org. They've created a petition to remove Blake Lively from the 2025 Time 100 Most Influential People Titan Award. Now, are there bigger issues in the world to deal with than this? Yes. And only 249 people have signed up for it, which kind of goes to show that it's like, I don't think people really, nobody's canceling their Time magazine. Nobody has Time magazine, right? Who was the last person to buy it? Nobody. Unless your grandma was on a flight somewhere and needed some, light reading material, no one's buying Time magazine. And look, I'm not here to make fun of Grandma Blanche, okay? Enjoy your time if that's what you want. But I don't even think they print copies anymore. I think they got to dust off the printing mill and be like, wait, someone ordered one this year? And then they got to print it off. Who knows? But either way, they discuss why they should remove her from the Time 100 Most Influential, which, again, isn't going to happen. This is the best thing that could happen for Time, to have things like this on there, because it gets someone talking about time again. But what's interesting is, while we've got Blake Lively on the Time 100 Most Influential People Titan Award, and by the way, someone had posted that the Titan was the name of the vessel that was destroyed, that was visiting the Titanic, right? So either way, I don't know if being a Titan is a good thing out there, but either way, it certainly isn't if you're an NFL football fan. But the Vital Voices was the award. It's called Vital Voices, Invest in Women, Improve the World. Vital Voices works with extraordinary women leaders, accelerating peace and prosperity in their communities. And again, Justin Baldoni had received, then rescinded, or he didn't rescind, they took it back, the award he received. Here's what they posted. This is still up there. On Christmas Eve's Eve, the Voices of Solidarity Award honors remarkable men who have shown courage and compassion in advocating on behalf of women and girls. On December 9th, we recognize Justin Baldoni with this award. On Saturday, December 21st, we learned through news reports about a lawsuit brought by Blake against Mr. Baldoni, and they basically say, we're taking the award back. We have notified Mr. Baldoni that we have rescinded this award. And I guess the interesting thing is that they haven't taken this down. So will he get his award back? Now, he probably doesn't want that award now from Vital Voices, but it's still an interesting question because this is the type of PR that lingers, even if he's proven innocent of all of these claims and wins his lawsuits. These types of things have a lasting effect, right? All right, well, let's do this. I'm going to come back to talk about Signalgate. I got a Lady Gaga story, and we're going to share a little bit more about the pesky tariffs and the lack of progress being made as our Titan, the U.S. economy, slowly sinks All these stories coming up next. Well, this morning we covered an update to the Signalgate, the sort of conspiracy that was busted where Pete Hegseth had sent war plans to a unsecured group chat. Again, a journalist was found to be in that group chat. Well, now two sources have spoken out saying he also included his wife and his brother in a different group chat regarding the same attack plans. Oh, maybe he wanted to let his wife, hey, honey, I'm going to be late. I'm bombing Yemen. I don't know. Doesn't make it right. Either way, here's bootlicker number one, that being the sort of press secretary to the president, saying, hey, no, all's good on our end. Have a listen to this.
I want to end with this. Front page of the New York Times, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth back in the news about staffers had to be dismissed and a second Signal chat that took place. Where's the president stand on this?
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring, so they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job, and the president stands strongly behind him.
There it is. Now, again, let me tell you why this is hogwash. Again, it's like, okay, the liberals are against us. The woke judges are against us. The Pentagon is against us. Hey, bro, you run the Pentagon. Those are people you brought in. In fact, this wasn't even in my lineup, but the person speaking out, I mean, these are their own people speaking out. So look at this. Pete Hegseth, unlikely to remain defense secretary, ex-Department of Defense spokesperson says. So this article is fresh off the press, right? I mean, this stuff came out today. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, unlikely to keep hold of his position for much longer, the Pentagon's former top spokesperson said, as the Department of Defense contends with total chaos in the wake of further reported leaks of sensitive military information. Hegseth, still within the first 100 days of the presidency of a second administration, has been a magnet for criticism over his steering of the Pentagon. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Well, I mean, and by the way, I got credit where it's due. Caroline Leavitt looks gorgeous here. I don't know. She's really upped her game. She looks gorgeous there. And by the way, did you know this? Again, it doesn't matter. I'm all for doing what you want with your body. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is only 27 years old. Did you know that? Her husband is 32 years older than her. Go, girl, get it. Get that bag, Caroline. So Caroline met her husband on a campaign trail just last year and immediately popped out a baby. Good for them. I'll tell you what, say what you want about her, but she's not wasting any time. So again, when her baby, I guess, graduates high school, his dad will be nearly the Pope's age. Gee, I'm trying to do the math on this one. Wow. I mean, not quite that old, but late 70s. Either way, do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Love's love, I guess. I don't know. Do I find that weird? Yes. But that's just my opinion. All right, let's move it on. The more we learn about Donald Trump's tariff plan, the more it feels like a girlfriend we're dating who's absolutely crazy. We don't know what she wants. Here we have Japan and Europe both saying, we don't even know how to make Trump happy. We tried it all. We bought him a pony, we bent the knee, and it's like nothing's good enough, right? We saw this play out with other countries where other countries who don't even have reciprocal tariffs are now being tariffed even more. And it's like, what's going on? How do we solve this? And as I look at my stocks, the S&P is down over 3% today. So it gets worse and worse and worse with no end in sight as nobody knows how to please their girlfriend. And unlike in a toxic relationship where you can break up, it seems as though we're stuck with this relationship for a long time. Have a listen to Ryan Grimm, one of the most trusted political pundits out there, as he discusses the lack of light at the end of this tunnel.
So for the people that still have some hope that Trump's trade war is going to turn into something decent long term, what they'll often tell you is that, yeah, there's going to be some short-term pain, but there's going to be long-term gain. And the long-term upside is going to come from these negotiations that Trump forces these other countries into. He now has leverage. He's brought them to the table. He's going to undo these terrible deals that have been screwing us for many years, and he's going to get us better deals. Well, two recent news items suggest that those hopes might be a little bit too high at this point. Reports coming out of the meetings between American negotiators and the European Union and American negotiators and the Japanese suggest that in both of those cases, the Japanese and the Europeans came out with no idea what it is that the United States even wants. And Morris Sefcovic, according to a Bloomberg report, went in, he's the EU trade chief. He went in with the Americans and he said, okay, what is it that you guys want? And they couldn't tell him. As one news report put it, he was, quote, struggling to determine the American side's aim. Now, Chaz Freeman, a former diplomat, said that the Japanese meeting went roughly the same, that Japanese came in and said, all right, what is it that you guys want? And the Americans couldn't really tell them. And the reason is not that the Americans just don't know what they want, it's that the trade war doesn't really have any obvious aims. Trump thinks we've been getting screwed for many years and thinks tariffs will solve this. He's not trying to rewrite any particular trade deal and change the terms of either our tariffs or currency policy or anything else. He thinks we're getting screwed and he's going to upend all of it.
And it's just like the same way how when Trump was forced to decide who to pardon from the January 6th insurrection, he ended up pardoning everybody because they didn't want to put the work into finding out who was actually there violently versus not. It's just laziness, really. It's kind of just virtue signaling to that base. Like, we're going to solve this thing. But they're not really doing anything strategic to solve that. And by the way, all of these tariffs that are meant to make things right are just taxes on our own people. It's now being reported from dairy farmers as they buy feed for their cattle. They're now, there's some cases in upstate New York where they're the only people they can buy from are in Canada, and they truly believe they're getting robbed because what might have cost $1,200 is now costing $5,000, or all of these different price points are hurting the consumer. In this case, the consumer of these tariffs is Americans. And so many people think that the other countries are going to pay for it, but now they're getting stuck with the bill. And now they're realizing for themselves the cold hard facts, which is tariffs are paid for by American consumers, period. That's it. All right, let's move it on from there. I wanted to share this interesting, we like to share some just like motivational stuff out there. It's all about marching to the beat of your own drum. And here's Lady Gaga explaining how having perspective in the music industry is important. Now, I'll argue you can make this same motivational claim to anything you want to do out there. Having perspective as a politician, as a performer, working in business, or even sales is really the difference that separates you from people pleasers. Have a listen.
What I think an artist needs essentially more than discipline or even talent is a perspective. So if you are always changing what you do based on what other people say, you completely lose yourself and you become just, something that's constantly affected by what's around you as opposed to stable and your own. What I think,
it's kind of like this. It's like feeding a bunch of birds by holding up bird food and being very still. That is how you feed the birds versus running after each bird and trying to feed them. They're all going to be run away. That's the dumbest analogy, but you get the point. Maybe with bird flu out there, don't feed birds. The point is that you got to be you. You got to own who that is. You got to know that that's going to ruffle some feathers and it won't be for everybody. But when you have your feet like really planted into the sand in an authentic way, that's more believable. That's why when I look at like AOC, I say, well, she's being herself. She's being talked about because she's being true to her principles. And people either love that or hate that, but they're not indifferent about that. And that's the key to success. And again, we always say it's like crack an egg to make an omelet, right? You need to be you, even if that's not for everybody. And I feel that way with our channel here. We continue to grow, not by being divisive, but by being very specific with my opinions as I see them. Those that enjoy them can be around for it, and those that don't have to be here. But if I tried to please everybody, it would just be watered down. And that's not the world I want to or you want to live in. All right, well, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back in the morning as we chug along. We'll see you then. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.